Be able to abide by them anyway. Buddy, welcome. I call the New Shoreham Town Council back to order. Today's Wednesday, May 20th at 7 p.m. Just for the record and for the folks here, we had a closed session before this meeting where the town manager briefed the council on the current status of negotiations with the police officers union. Those happen routinely in closed session while they're underway. No votes were taken. It was merely a status report. Is there any public comment tonight? No. Well, we announced at our last meeting that unfortunately Nancy Dodge has had to resign, and that we have to accept that resignation, as I understand it. And I would, if someone could make a motion to accept that with great regret.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Next is to appoint a current town council member to fill the position of second warden, which is our role as town council members under the charter when there's an absence. And I understand Molly O'Neill has expressed a willingness to do that.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Molly O'Neill to fulfill the seat of Nancy Dodge's second warden for the remainder of the term.
Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. You ready to hear?
Would she have to be sworn in at that, or
Maybe
we can defer to Millie at our next meeting?
Yes.
Just
Only Millie swears
yeah,
people in.
just for a process. That's all.
Yeah, good question. And then we have steps to fill the vacant town council position. I would hope to put it on our next meeting agenda. That would be my hope. I don't know how other people feel.
Sure. I know a couple people have sent letters,
Yeah.
and I'd like to encourage people if
Yeah.
they have an interest.
Please.
To send letters to the council.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's a good trial run. You have several weeks before you have to decide whether you want to run. We'll be kind. One of the more important things we do as a council, so we take it seriously, and if you're interested, tell us. Next we have the consent agenda. If there aren't any concerns about that, I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We have, it's good that when we have a crowd, we have a number of vacancies. Commission on Motor Vehicles for Hire, Old Harbor Task Force, Police Advisory Commission, Age-Friendly Community Task Force, Sewer District and Water District, and the Early Learning Center Board of Directors. That is a new opening, very important position for the town. Please, if you don't want to write and volunteer to be considered to be on the town council, write and volunteer to be on one of these boards or commissions. They're vital to us. Finally, Laurel, do I need to do a motion to reconvene this hearing, or is it just considered open? Just procedurally? So we don't need a motion to open. Okay. Joe, do you want to speak?
Good evening. Joe Priestley, an attorney from Westerly, Rhode Island, representing Gary Pollard in the Empire Theater. Mr. Pollard is here this evening along with Chris Cardaci of Chris Cardaci Pinball Services, who will be providing games to the Empire Theater if the amendment is approved. They are also available to answer any questions you may have. Mr. Pollard, as you know, has filed a zone change petition to allow games room, which are already defined in your ordinance. as a permitted use in the Old Harbor Commercial Zone. It is currently a prohibited use throughout the town, and this petition affects only the Old Harbor Commercial Zone, but it also very significantly affects the Empire Theater, although it's a zone-wide amendment. The planning board has reviewed the application and issued a favorable advisory. Your town planner provided them with a cogent analysis, which they essentially adopted, finding that a huge part of Block Island's appeal and thus its economic background is child-oriented in nature, that the proposed amendment could contribute to the diverse array of recreational activities on the island, which would improve the general welfare, that the town currently caters towards child and family activities. However, many of these are outdoor activities. Providing indoor family-oriented activities could incentivize tourism despite inclement weather and bolster the economy of the town, and addressing current and future needs. The proposed amendment the board also found that the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals of the LU1B of the comprehensive plan to direct growth to appropriate areas, because the Old Harbor area commercial zone is already populated with ice cream and trinket shops and is appropriate for recreational use. The planner states perceptively that a child-oriented arcade would fit well in with the neighboring shops and speak to the quality of the town. It's Mr. Pollard's position, and entirely consistent with the planning board's recommendation, that the proposed amendment furthers the goals of the comprehensive plan. It's also his position that the island needs a non-alcohol serving place for youth and their families to gather indoors during the summer when it's raining, when they had enough time at the beach, and in the evenings. The Old Harbor Commercial District is appropriate for the use as found by the planning board, and the Empire Theater is particularly appropriate. It first opened in 1882 by Cassius Ball as a roller rink and has been used for public entertainment purposes ever since. Mr. Pollard reopened it in 1992 after it had been closed down and condemned for 7 years, and he's operated the theater for the last 34 years, including the occasional live show, and as those of you who are been around long enough to remember the Champlain's litigation, an occasional public meeting. COVID killed the theater business. Last July, on a Saturday night, showing a newly released Fantastic Four film, the Empire Theater sold 1 ticket. That business can't continue. Arcades have existed on the island for 50 years, and at one point in time, 4 or 5 game rooms operated on the island. There was never that we know of any problems with their operation. But over the years, they have closed one after the other as the owners have dedicated their property to more profitable uses. They had their place in the economy of the town. They just didn't make enough money. Mr. Pollard is prepared to devote the Empire Theater once again to providing recreation and entertainment in the Old Harbor District. You'll have all seen island and visiting teens roaming around downtown during summer nights looking for a place to socialize, looking for something to do. The Empire Theater is a game room or arcade or another location in the Old Harbor Commercial Zone, since this is zone-wide, would provide them a safe place with something to do, as it often has in the past. Mr. Pollard has never offered the Empire Theater to make money. He acquired it based on his love for historic buildings and his love of movies. He doesn't see a way to continue it as a movie theater, but he is committed to continuing it as a place for public entertainment. He intends to establish and endow the Gary Pollard Foundation, and its primary mission will be to preserve the Empire Theater for future generations. Game rooms, though hardly as lucrative as retail sales, are relatively easy to operate and have the potential to operate indefinitely for future generations in the Empire Theater. The application before you is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's consistent with the advisory opinion of the planning board, and it's also consistent with the opinion of the town planner. It also serves to support the continued use of the only remaining historic structure in the Old Harbor Commercial District devoted to public recreational use, which would be a bonus, not just for Mr. Pollard and the town, but also with visitors. Basically, you've got a relatively simple zone change petition allowing game rooms already defined in your ordinance in a single zone, the most developed zone in town where development is encouraged. It's been looked at by the planning board. It's been approved by the planning board. We ask you to approve it also.
Terrific, thank you. Any questions for Joe?
Yeah, my question was, if this is, and I don't know if it's to Joe, if our attorney's on, so if we were to approve this, and if someone wanted to do a game room, they would still have to go through a special use?
No,
Or they, or,
the way it's drafted, a game room would be a permitted use. The person could go to, now, what we have added in response to the planning board on the licensing regulations, like chapter 8, were provisions that no gaming device shall be visible from the abutting streets. They were concerned about that. And we drafted proposed hours of operation, which you might or might not choose to. And the other thing we did that was we eliminated the limit to no more than 2 licenses shall be used in one establishment, because a license runs for each machine. And if you have that, basically there's no possibility to run a game room.
I have a couple of questions. Which lawyer do we have?
So you have
James.
James and we may have Peter. He's in 2 meetings and
Okay.
wasn't sure exactly when there he is.
Okay. Hi.
So we have James and we have Peter, the planner.
Okay, I just have a couple questions. So right now we have some places that have grandfathered machines, right? Like I think Kittens, Aldo's.
Right now, you allow up to 2 machines.
Right, but what I'm asking is if we pass this, does that supersede those? They wouldn't, because they wouldn't be, those are an exception right now. They're grandfathered. If we pass this, do those still?
It might become permitted.
Or does
I don't
this
know where
wipe
they
that
are.
clean?
If they have satisfied the same conditions that Mr. Pollard's application is providing, then they would become by right, and they would no longer be grandfathered. But if they don't satisfy those conditions, they would keep their grandfathered status.
That's correct. They would keep the operation they have going unless they make some kind of changes, which we don't anticipate.
Okay. And then my other question is, this application is for New Harbor Commercial. I'm sorry, Old Harbor Commercial. If we were to include New Harbor Commercial as well, would we have to re-advertise? Or, if we were to just say we're to include it in both zones? I actually have this question of the next topic on the agenda as well, so I'm just curious. If we add another zone beyond what's advertised, do we need to re-advertise?
I think you'd have to re-advertise or do that as part of a separate application.
So they could adopt this tonight and re-advertise to consider New Harbor Commercial.
That might be a whole new application, not just in addition to this one.
you're saying the zone can't be expanded?
I wouldn't recommend it at this
presented by
point,
the
no.
applicant?
Right. I don't think that's not an insignificant change that would it's not like a change in a little bit of language. That's a pretty significant change.
So the criteria for re-advertising is if it's a significant change to what was presented.
Right. You'd want to have the neighbors in New Harbor to be able to weigh in if that was the case. And in this instance, I don't think they have notice that would be happening.
But this is for all of Old Harbor Commercial. This is not specific to the Empire Theater.
Correct.
Okay. Do you guys have other things? Go ahead. Okay, so I have a few other things. about the type of games that I would or wouldn't want to see in here. If we were to pass this, I would want to see it with no redemption style games, games of chance, games that one would receive tickets or prizes. No games rated above teen, and no rides or kiddie rides.
I don't think we have problems with any of those, except for the issue of no games rated above teens. And the reason we have is because the commercial games aren't rated. So we can't satisfy that. I think that's true. Is that correct, Chris?
The research I did said games are rated.
I can produce testimony from Chris who's been.
You have to use a microphone if you're going to speak.
Hi, my name is Chris Cardacy.
Hi, Chris.
Sure.
Welcome.
Please. Do I need to be sworn in?
No, no.
Oh, no,
No.
comment. Okay, so, I understand your concern about the video games. Video games are typically rated. Pinball machines, however, are generally not rated, depending just mostly the IP, and there are settings that you can change. But the type of machines that we are gonna be bringing in are gonna fit within the criteria that you're requesting.
Chris, can I ask addressing Molly's point, about the games for, what was it, your redemption?
Sure.
I know like, in Newport, there's an arcade, a family arcade. I
Yes.
forget the name of it. And then, there's a token little.
Sure.
Are you looking to do anything like that?
We're not doing any sort of redemption type, anything that gives tickets or any kind of prizes, things like that. We're sticking to pinball, other games that are coin operated to play, but nothing that's gonna generate tickets, prizes, loud, obnoxious, light pollution, things like that. We're really geared towards sticking to the vibe of this district, where the Empire Theater is a very old theater. We're gonna keep everything sort of in line with what the theater is looking to do, and also, again, keeping with your comprehensive plan.
So we would, and it would have no games of chance. It would only be games of
Correct.
skill.
Correct, yes. And pinball is 100% a game of skill.
So no claw machines or,
So claw machines, no, those are also games of skill.
claw machine is a game of skill.
As far as I understand, there are some ways that there can be changes in percentages of win rates, but in terms of chance, there's more skill involved. But
We're not offering games.
correct. We're not offering those types of
Okay.
games.
Okay.
So
Sorry.
we not offering?
We are.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Well, not if we say you're not, though. Just,
Gary Pollard, owner of Empire Theater. All this, I had a very hard time finding any supplier willing to come out here with and supply the theater with any kind of games. By luck, I was persistent and I found Chris and his partner. And they specifically love pinball and other vintage games. And Claw Game is a vintage arcade game. It's the prize is worthless. People do it for the fun. It's a fun activity. It's not gambling. And we are going to have claw machines. It's a very popular, innocuous, fun, entertaining game. I played it as a kid. And all the arcades on the island, when there were arcades, had claw games, amongst other games. So specifically, we're mixing vintage arcade games with some new games, which is very rare to find an arcade like that.
Thank you, Gary.
Would that be what you would call a redemption game? Is that what you would call that? How you see it, or is
well, I think we're having a difference about whether that is a game of skill or chance, but
I was never very good at it.
I think that's the idea. So Molly, are you saying you would like to add an F? Do you have the draft before you? Are you saying you want to add an F to 8-21?
Right, but then are we going to see this written again, or are we going to vote on this tonight?
I think that will depend on what the solicitor and clerk say about our need to re-advertise it. So we can turn it around quickly.
But we can,
No, I'm sorry. I think you're answering an important but a different question. If, for example, we did in 8-21 subsection F that said, whatever, you can't have claw games. You know, God only knows how you define that. We would be relying on you and James to tell us whether that is a substantial enough change that it requires it to be re-advertised and this hearing continued so that the public has a chance to see that language.
But what I think you can do is, if you get it, we can get a draft together and have it on the agenda for the next meeting. As long as that language is redlined and in the agenda material,
Okay.
you shouldn't have a problem with it. I think that'll be okay.
Gotcha. I see, James.
we would end the hearing. Is that correct? Oh, okay, got it.
It's okay to continue it, but James just offered us a wonderful wide open door, which is we work on the language tonight, it gets published for our next agenda,
Got
and
it.
that constitutes sufficient notice given that it has already been advertised. Do I understand that correctly, James?
Correct.
So I also, it's referenced in here a little bit, but not the way, maybe I don't know. I'm hoping we could specify that if you have an arcade, you do not also hold a liquor license for the same property. Right? Because we're talking about a child-oriented arcade. So in my mind, that does not have a liquor license on the same premises.
And we have no objection adding that as a license restriction at the end of paragraph 8-21 also. We've never intended to have a liquor license along with it. We've intended it to be child oriented.
Just a quick follow-up to that, Molly. The people who are I don't know of any, but if there's someone who has these games, who has been grandfathered, who also holds a liquor license, they would not be impacted by that change because they would still be operating under their grandfather status. Is that correct?
Correct.
As long as they continue to apply for the license every year.
Right.
Okay.
As long as they don't exceed what they've been grandfathered for,
Right. So we,
or don't seek to exceed that. If they sought to exceed that, then they would have to make a decision between a game and their liquor license. And I don't think
that won't be a
sorry.
a big
I wasn't going to
decision.
be flippant about it, but
So if, can we, so the first thing you said was no redemption style games, correct?
I am looking for no redemption style games, games of chance, games, again, a little repetitive, games with prizes or tickets, that's redemption games. No games rated above teen, no rides or kiddie rides.
So if we added as 8F, no redemption style games, 8G, no games of chance, 8H, no games rated above teen. 8I, no kids or kiddie rides, no kids or no rides or kiddie rides. And 8J, no liquor license.
Did we make a clarification as to the claw game? Is that it? I mean,
And we-
I know you go into Walmart, you have them on the side, you go into the one in Newport.
There's
so
not-
I just so it's clear for
Yeah,
both sides.
It's not like you're putting something in with a chance of winning $5 or $2, which would be, like a pinball machine, like a one-arm bandit.
I'm not arguing for, it, but
No,
I want clarification. Do you?
We would-
Is the claw game?
We would like that not considered a game of chance and
I think you
allowed.
just have to make that clear.
Yeah.
So we understand.
If you could live with that, we could live with no games of chance.
If you're okay with that, I mean, I've been to the arcade in Newport. I've taken my grandson and the prizes that they have, it's like a Dave and Buster's. They're really, you're walking out with a $2 squirt gun or whatever it might be. And it's a good activity to do with that end on that side of it. I do think the activity should remain inside, not on the outside of the building. Like the one in Newport over there. But I have, if you're good with those, concerns that some of the council members have, I'm fine with that.
I think as we just recited them, if that's acceptable to you, it's acceptable to us.
That's how I so D, it says no games shall be visible from the abutting street.
That was in response.
Interior, games would be on the interior of the
Right.
building only.
So in
Right.
other words, it won't be on the patio, whether there's an awning or not inside the buildings, inside the interior walls of it. So whether it be
You could add, no gaming device shall be visible from the abutting street, and all gaming devices shall be within the interior walls of the building. That's what we plan. We're happy with that. That clarifies it. I think having them not visible in the street would work too, but that just makes it clear.
I just think it's important when, that everyone's on the same page.
Agreed.
Did you have another question, Bill?
I don't know.
All right. So when's our next meeting?
June 5th, I think,
June 1st.
for June 1st.
And
Does the list that you provided and that Joe just recited that?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm talking to Molly, not Laura.
Talking to Laurel.
I just want to make sure that we've covered the stuff that you mentioned. Okay. Can you provide that to Laurel?
Yes, and there's one other
Only
thing.
because you've been taking notes.
And there's one other thing I want to add is that we addressed it here, the issue under the licensing provision that no more than 2 licenses, removing the limitation in an establishment to 2 licenses. And since then, I found that that is also in zoning section 516A1. So we would ask that that also be added and eliminated. It's basically said no more than 2 gaming devices may be located in one establishment. It's in the zoning ordinance and the license.
Oh, you found another spot where this
Yeah.
prohibition was.
So if we can include that, and I can get that to Laurel also,
Great.
we're good.
Does anybody want to put a cap on the number of games, or are you good with like any number of games?
That's up to you.
The planning board discussed that. They concluded that these activities are licensed as, are regulated as basically public places of public accommodation, which have the Texas Fire Code ruling, so that basically, as long as it's covered under that, you don't need to limit the number of games. So that was what the planning boards, how they came down on it, and it's how we came down on it.
So can I just interrupt for 1 second? Because I have the sense that Amy is trying to flag us down.
I'm actually trying to find an answer before I flag,
Oh,
but I don't think we're going to.
Oh, all right.
And I think James is going to hear this for the first time. I want to identify what may be a wrinkle in Molly's amendments, in that what's advertised tonight, I believe, is only the zoning amendment, not the general ordinances about licensing. And so we can take all of that information, but the advertisement process for the general ordinances around licensing, which includes what you're proposing, may need to be done separately.
Okay.
Because it looks like only the zoning.
Would that
change.
be done in time for your mid-month meeting in June?
I can't answer that right now.
Just in terms of number of issues.
Advertising timeframe.
My other question is, once the games are placed, wouldn't there need to be a visit by the fire marshal to ensure that there's the adequate space around everything?
That's our understanding. Yes.
So you're gonna, Gary, come on up to the microphone, please.
Just to clarify, Gary Pollard again, to clarify, the games that we're going to have, none of them are designed or built to be outdoors in the first place. So that's not in our agenda. And the number of games, I'm just curious, what would be the reason to limit the number of games?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're
So-
ahead, Gary.
You also have to remember, we're changing the ordinance for an entire zone. So while what you're thinking of is just about your location, right? We have to consider how will this play out in the entire Old Harbor commercial zone.
I would see it as sort of analogous to a restaurant. If they have enough tables, room for X amount of tables, they should be allowed that amount of tables. We have a really huge space, and
That's what-
okay, thank you.
A wise man once said to me, don't push yourself through an open door. So you're gonna prepare that language?
And if we need to re-advertise it,
Yes.
we'll re-advertise the whole thing. We'll get it and we'll meet again. It makes no sense not to get it all done at once.
Right. So procedurally, I want to give the shortest date possible and then see whether advertising is possible, because if it's not, we can continue it again.
Well, if you continue it to the first,
Yes.
and it's not possible, we can just from the first continue. Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
And I will try to get everything to Laurel tomorrow as soon as I get back to the office.
So can I have a motion to continue the matter? Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Joe. All right, Land Trust, disc golf. How are you?
Good evening, everybody. Paravagi for the Land Trust. So, as you know, this is, and you've probably seen a fairly voluminous quantity of materials surrounding this application, but this is a petition sort of tracking the need for something for people to do that's outdoors as opposed to indoors from the last petition. Essentially, what we, as the Land Trust, had initially considered was a special use permit for a disc golf under the general heading of recreational uses. And the Land Use Department raised a concern that, you know, we're not sure what this is. Perhaps this is something that should be studied, and maybe a zoning amendment by way of text change, a text amendment would be appropriate, just so everybody knows what we're talking about. And so that's why we're here. We began this process back in February. We submitted an application along with the narrative I'm sure you've read, basically tying into the comp plan the relationship between conservation and recreation, and pointing out that even according to the comp plan and just common sense, they're not mutually exclusive. You can have a recreational use on a conserved property. The comp plan clearly contemplates that and in fact encourages it. So we're here to, on the nut of the application is to amend the text of the zoning ordinance to, number one, define what disc golf is so everybody knows what we're talking about. We're on the same page. Two, to designate what zones would be applicable. We've gone through the planning board process. It was productive. It was lengthy, and there were a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. Our application was initially for just the RA zone. If you've seen the planning recommendation, it came down saying, well, why don't we add it to all zones, save for a couple of overlays and specialized zones? And we don't have a problem with that. That's fine. The planning department did a.
Can I interrupt you, Per?
Of course.
Because maybe I read this incorrectly.
Sure.
I thought it was only in RA.
That's correct. That's how we had applied it. That's how we had applied for. However, after the planning process, the planning board's recommendation included expanding it to other zones to include the RB, RC, RC-M, OHC, NHC, and SC districts for special use permit.
Okay.
I'm not going to, we don't have an issue with that, put it that way. The planning board issued a positive, a favorable recommendation. It was not a unanimous vote, but it was a majority vote. And the town planner came out with, again, to echo Joe's words, a cogent analysis, tapping into the standards required of the findings for a zoning amendment under the general laws, as well as the town's zoning ordinance, which tracks the general laws criteria almost verbatim. So as part of this, there was a lot of what I felt to be public education about this issue, and we received a large number of letters in support before the planning board. There are some people here to talk today about that if you feel it's necessary to get any more granular level of detail about what this activity specifically involves. But as with the last application, this is a zone-wide application, general applicability even beyond the RA, which I understand from James may require some further proceedings if we're going to explain this to other zoning districts. If that's a consideration, whether we have to come back for another application or not, I'm prepared to address that tonight. If you're prepared to address that tonight, that's fine. If you want to put it over for another discussion, I'm happy with the application for the RA zone. I'm not sure how the town council feels about that. But again, tying into the prior discussion, this is an outdoor activity. It is not currently specifically contemplated in the zoning ordinance, but what it really is, and just to sort of describe what we're talking about a little bit and to set the table, this is what I would consider a fairly light impact recreational activity outdoors that uses pre-existing natural features as part of the challenge. It is called disc golf for a reason, because it is kind of analogous to golf, where the idea is to get an object from point A to point B in the shortest amount of, with the least effort, basically. The structures involved are temporary. They are movable. The holes they're technically called holes, but they're baskets. They're fungible. You can move them from one location to another. There is a requirement for the placement of an anchor in the ground to hold them in place. The tee boxes are, you can pick them up and move them. Really, it's minimally intrusive on existing topography and geography and geology. There's no need to, if you have, there's essentially required is brush clearing. Again, any brush clearing and setbacks or DEM, protected areas or CRMC, of course, that's a whole separate regulatory scheme that we'd have to abide by. But again, it's a healthy outdoor recreational activity. It can be done by any person, age, gender, really, so long as you can pick up a disc and throw it. It's available to you. I think it's a good addition. It's a good option. It's a good alternative. Aside from the outdoor recreational activity that involves passing out with a beer next to you on the beach, I think it's a win. I think it's a solid use of the open space that we have on the island.
Thank you. Is Peter still here? Could we bring him up? Hi, Peter. Keith Stover,
Hey.
how are you, man?
Good.
Um,
Nice to
I
see you.
just have just a couple of, I suppose, maybe technical, maybe substantive questions for you from a planning point of view. Since we're talking about an ordinance change and not a proposal, I was struck in the planning board's in this draft that we have before us that there's actually a buffer identified and parking rules identified. Are those not usually subject to the sort of give and take, back and forth, what have you, of the special use permit process?
All right, I apologize. I've got a 1-year-old next to me.
Oh, don't worry about it.
So there's been a big shift in state law, and 2 years ago. So now that there's what's called specific and objective criteria that are required, and so we've been struggling to try with the new special use permits to fit into that metric, and the requirements for parking have come out of that. So that was our attempt to try and balance everything.
So you're
including, the area concerns. Yep.
So you're more inclined to include specificity like that, even when it would yet the proposal would be subject to a special use permit. You recommend specificity in the ordinance around that level?
Yeah, the state's even going so far as in the proposed bills this year, removing the ability to attach conditions on special use permits. So that special use permits really aren't the tool that they used to be in terms of controlling development. And so we thought the board would be in a better position should an applicant come forward, whether it be planning or zoning board, to have this language in the ordinance.
I mean, I get where the legislature was going on housing matters, and subjective criteria being used, shall we say, as a technique.
Right.
But on non-housing, there's no bright line in the statute that sort of says this is for housing, this is for other uses. Take your time. We've all been there, brother.
I think you.
Did you hear me say correct? Oh, sorry.
I sort of have a, I sort of have a.
I thought he was on mute while his baby was.
I sort of have a related question to this, that if all of these parameters are going to be in here, do they also apply to regulation golf, tennis courts, and field sports, which are the other uses, in which case they need to be more generalized? So, we're saying 6 parking spaces for a 9-hole disc golf course, when that should apply to the regulation golf as well. because regulation golf is a permitted use, do we want to generalize those terms a little bit, those requirements a little bit more?
That's a great point, and it was a little bit of my frustration with the process. Was that as you all know, the zoning ordinance is decades old, and we're working with it trying to apply modern issues, and that can be challenging. So there are currently no golf courses on the island. There may be a desire that there be no golf courses on the island. If someone does bring forward a proposal for one, there aren't a lot of requirements for a board to look at in regulating that application. Here we have a desire for disc golf to be brought to the island, and there's a desire for a lot of restrictions on how that be brought forward.
I also have another question about, I mean, I'd be happier, like Keith is saying, if these just weren't in here. They seem very specific for just one topic when we have to address all the topics, I think, if we're going to do that. But when I was calling around to see how other towns have done disc golf on Nantucket, they have a disc golf course that's been there since 2012. And the man that runs it, he said very specifically that their disc golf course was used just as frequently by dog walkers, people who are out walking their dogs in that neighborhood. And so I don't think I'm all that comfortable with saying no dogs. What if somebody lives in that neighborhood, just wants to go walk their dog while there's nobody playing disc golf, like it's another trail? Like, is this going to be the only public space where we're saying don't bring your dog? That seems very out of line with what we have going on in general.
I don't see the dog language. Could you direct me to it?
It is in,
It's C.
would
Oh, no
be,
pets. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
6C. 6, resident recreational facility disc golf, item C. Pets, no pets except service animals shall be allowed on the premises.
Here, do you recollect where that came from? The applicant know where that restriction?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were
Yeah.
addressing me.
Sorry.
I believe that came up in the course of the initial planning board discussions. I think our first hearing in March that came up. And we incorporated it. We understood there were some concerns, potential
I'm
concerns.
sorry, I don't remember that exact concern, but I could look into it and get back to you.
But just, well, anyway, I'm not gonna offer particular language when I remain uncomfortable with the level of specificity around things like parking and buffers, when to me that ought to be a part of the process that the planning board undertakes when an application is presented. Now, it may well be that there are places where the buffer ought to be 200 feet. It may well be that there are places where the buffer is maybe non-existent. Maybe it's an link style Scottish course where there are no boundaries, so I don't know.
I feel the same. I feel I think those were put in with good intent, but the ordinance is being written around one specific property. Well, it appears to me that it's being written around a particular property because that was what was put forth to the planning board. And to me, it would make sense that if an applicant asks for a special exception, that's where those things should be based on that applicant's application. Those stipulations should be put in.
Because
I
that,
see it here that, I see here the question is, do we want to allow someone to apply for a special use permit in RA zone? And to me, at that point, the details of it would be, whether we want to allow that to be the ability to make a request, not to approve it, for them to make the request. And that's why I have problems with specifying out those other things in the ordinance. And I think, when I read one of the letters, when I believe it was Gail Hall, who's a member, had said the same thing about us expanding this to the other zones. For instance, down by the Bowl O'Brien, if someone wanted to put it into 2 or 3, whatever it might be. So those are a couple of things that I had, that were my concerns, and where I think that we should look at not just the RA. And based on our last discussion, I don't know whether that is something that if we wanted to do more than the RA, it would have to be re-advertised or whatever. But it sounds like from our last discussion.
Yes, what was advertised was the RA, so if the council were inclined to align, and Peter and James will jump in, align more with the planning board's recommendation to look at all zones, that would need, I think, to be re-advertised.
I'm comfortable with RA, but I'm uncomfortable with, so some of the places I looked into disc golf, I'm sure everybody else did too, but in Naples, Florida, there is a church that has a disc golf course. In Jamestown, there are several courses in the same town. Some of them are on private property, some of them are on public property. Most of them are not monetized, some are. So it appears that it's very uncommon for it to be monetized, like you don't generally pay to play. So they're maintained by someone, either a private owner or an organization. I guess, if St. Andrews decided that they wanted to put in some disc golf in their backyard, they're in the RA zone. Sorry. Like, does all this apply? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think unfortunately, rather than looking at the RA zone, everybody was being steered towards one particular piece of property and wrote for one particular piece of property, but it's the entire zone.
by the way, I ask these questions as someone who wants to do this. You know what I mean? It's like not, but
And when I said was written towards that property, what I was referring to was the recommendation of the planning board.
yeah.
That's what I meant,
Yeah, I understand.
not UPA.
I understand that. Thank you.
Could you just clarify for me, because mostly because I'm doubting myself and what I saw at planning, because I watched the meeting. So you said the planning board recommended all zones.
Yes, well, all but a couple, I think, that specialized zones with overlay zones.
But then what arrived in front of us, zones other than RA are excluded.
That's true, because that's how it was initially, that was what the initial application was for. The recommendation was for additional zones, but as you know, it's advisory. It's the recommendations that they have that would,
Yeah.
that they feel would be appropriate, based upon, as you said before, prior discussions this evening, that may not be achievable in this particular session. But I don't think it's unreasonable. I think the reason we pitched RA in the first instance was because it is
I'm not questioning.
Yeah,
I get it. I'm just.
But just to your point, I
Yeah.
mean, it's generally larger parcels. It's more open
Yeah.
space.
Yeah,
So
fair.
again, some of the constraints that the planning board recommends might not be as applicable for
Sure.
a denser zone,
Mm-hmm.
a smaller course.
Yeah. Well, if we're gonna have to re-advertise by adding zones. I personally would like to consider this the way the planning board recommended it, with the other zones included. And my feeling about that is it might offer either additional opportunities or, I mean, who knows? Maybe someone in another zone wants it, you know, and.
But in the last hearing we just had, we had said that if we were going to expand it, that we could do that ourselves, or we could change it. It wasn't necessarily had to be, like, we could.
Right.
Yeah, so in other words, if we have a couple of options. We can, you know, obviously reject it. We could accept what's presented there. We could, if we wanted to expand it, there would have to be an advertising, as I understand. And if we were to say, hey, listen, we don't have an objection to expand it, we can do that another date. However, there are 4 or 5 recommendations in this from the planning board. We want to remove those. I believe we could remove those and still pass this, because those have already been advertised out there. No one's aggrieved by that.
Right.
Would someone with a little more legal background tell me whether I'm on the?
I was with you, man.
I see Joe nodding a little bit, but I don't know. Is James?
I'm sorry, could you say it again, Bill? Just,
If we were to change this, James, to include other zones, that would be a substantial enough change that would require. Would that fit through the door that you so nicely described for the previous matter?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
the zone.
You can't blame a guy for asking.
Yeah, I wish it was. We could try, but it might not withstand a challenge.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. David? Excuse me, Per.
David Lewis, Quinimus Road. So I became well versed in what the planning, what the original document came, as well as spending 3 hours would allow me to when I talked to Heidi Tarbox as well, to clarify some of the things that I was concerned about. Before I get to that, I'll just ask a simple question. If you adopt the planning board's full recommendation to make this a generic across zones, does that eliminate any person who wants to put a disc golf in any of the zones, including the land trust with their current proposal? A special use permit is not allowed? It's not required. It's not required.
So for me, the special use permit is vital to this regardless of zone.
That's exactly my opinion.
Yes. Well, then
But
you and
I
I,
have the assurance that, because I seem to not be hearing it as clearly as you've just said it.
yes. Well,
What
Yes.
we're doing is we're allowing someone to ask for a special use permit to have disc golf in a zone. We're not, that's all we're doing. If you want to have that disc golf, you would have to go and apply for a special use permit.
I would prefer it if you would use the word requiring a special use permit.
yes.
Yes.
That would be the requirement, and I think in all of our minds, David.
That would be
Yes.
great, because here's my point. I'm in total support of the land trust proposal, but I am concerned definitively about the parking situation. And I don't know that if you were to pass this without the special use process, you can't allow the community the opportunity to fully explore the impact of the ordinance on that particular site and that particular use, including, from my perspective, the parking.
Yes.
And the last thing we can use on Block Island is a parking jam everywhere.
I totally agree, David.
So-
We're in, I think we're in the same place.
Thank you.
That's why I started my questions were really asking about, in an oblique way, about the special use permit. And one of the things that would, I think, really be helpful, Peter, I won't put you on the spot while you have a 1-year-old with you.
Two left.
Uh,
We're good.
if the council were to decide that more zones ought to be included, let's say, and therefore this were continued to a meeting in June, it would be very helpful to me, at least, and I served on zoning, but it would be very helpful to me to have a new primer on the special use permit process and what questions can be asked and those sorts of things. Because I feel like I worry, I don't feel, I worry that my recollection of the special use permit was pre these state mandated zoning changes. And I think all of us would certainly want, I think everybody in this room would want neighbors heard as part of that process. And, I always thought that process was a good one to sort of flesh out the details of particular sites. And I want to make sure that we can still do that. And if we can't do that as part of the special use permit checklist, then I agree with you, Peter. We need to add more specificity into this ordinance.
Can I add another worm to this can of worms?
Please.
So if we're talking about re-advertising this altogether, is that what we're talking about?
It would be a possibility if we were going to make changes in it that weren't
Changes
So
in
that weren't.
I'm gonna put this out as
Yes. Yeah.
only if we are, and I may be like totally overstepping because this may require the planning board to offer an opinion on this, but if we're adding, if we would be considering adding disc golf, like, could we also consider adding a dog park as a permitted use? It's completely unrelated. I'm just throwing it out there because, like, if we're advertising,
I'd be thrilled with the dog park, but I think that would have to be a proposal that was made to planning.
so it
and
would
we
have to go to
through their
planning board.
process.
Okay, all right.
Gail?
Oh, thank you. Hi, Gail Hall. I'm speaking on behalf for myself, not as a planning board member, but because I want to say how much I understand and agree it would be great to have a disc golf course. I can't say that really quickly. I'll say that 5 times really fast. I think that it's important, after talking to one of the zoning members, that neighborhood input is very important if this is going to be involved in RA zone, because we already saw one proposal Land Trust met on a particular property, and I think all of the neighbors objected. And I think it's super important as the island gets busier, as we get older. I'm officially old. I like my peace and quiet. It's good to leave town and go home and have peace and quiet. So when a proposal comes forth in a residential A zone, I think neighborhood input would be very important. And from what I gather from a zoning official, it's not necessarily a criteria that they can actually refute an application on. They need that specific and objective criteria. And I think that's what Peter was saying earlier. As a planning board member, from what I understand, is that that's why we have the parking, because you need that specific criteria. Even though we might think it doesn't belong in an ordinance per se, I think they need it so that the zoning board can make decisions whether the property is appropriate. Say that Old Mill Farms doesn't come up, another property does. We have to make sure that property does have parking and that property does have setbacks. As you said, the varied setbacks make sense, not why limit it to 25 feet as is written. So another thing to consider. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember.
I think it would be a really that's sort of why I was saying to Peter, I think it would be a really worthwhile exercise for the members of the council to get a primer on the SUP process. In other words, the real manifestation of all these ordinance that we've been passing in order to conform to state law.
I think we have a June 3rd joint meeting coming up, and that might be a good opportunity.
Yeah, but whatever, you and Jen, it would be helpful to hear from Jen because, she's the keeper of a lot of this stuff. I don't know if that. Yeah.
I thought of the other thing I was going to comment on. Could I?
No.
I'm still nervous. I hate standing up in front of people talking. Oh, thank you. So the other thing I thought of is when I did look at the land trust management policy, disc golf is categorized as moderate impact. So it's been mentioned that it's light impact. So I think it's important to recognize that the land trust itself considers it moderate. What does that mean? What is moderate impact? I guess that's a really important question for I don't know how you.
I think that's not objective specific criteria. I think that's rather subjective.
There's just one point I want to make about that is when I'm looking at planning for the town, I'm looking at the full scheme of what's permissible from a ferry dock and a hotel all the way out to nature preserve, open space. And so when I talk about disc golf as light impact, it's in that context. The RA zone allows residential. Certainly disc golf has much less of an impact than a home.
Right.
I just, what David said, I mean, I hope it's clear to everyone that a special use permit would be required by part. But I really like to know more, we talk about when that board looks at that, what's subjective, what's not, I mean, the fact that, hey, we just rather not have one there, obviously wouldn't, from that end of it, but certainly things of, parking and I mean, the special use permit has to have some criteria and not every single thing has to be written down on it. And so I'd like to have some more definition as to, so people aren't, think that, there's nothing can be stopped, but it has to do with whether it's parking. So if you don't put the number of parking spaces, does that mean the board couldn't make that as part of a criteria? That's what I think has to be clarified for me, because there needs to be a layer of check and balance from it at that end of it. So that's what I'd like to hear as far as from the,
I mean,
that right, because I'd rather not have it in this part. I'd rather have it in the hands of the zoning so that they can look at, planning, so they can look at the external factors to that piece of property.
as I said, I want to find a way to do this. I support it. I just want to get it right so we
Okay,
don't have to
understood.
come back again. Sosha, of course you may. Which microphone would you like to use?
So as Sasha Cohen, full transparency here. I was one of the dissenting votes on this, on the planning board. And I would really like to read what I've written up for you to consider. The proposal before us has created two competing interests, both of which are supported by the comprehensive plan. One is a desire for outdoor recreation, and the other is the desire to maintain the character of the island. In my opinion, the latter outweighs the former in this particular case. People living in the RA zone take pride in the preservation of open spaces, view sheds, nature, as well as its beautiful maintained walking trails. It has taken many decades, much effort, hard work, and money to maintain its character. A disc golf course will threaten that effort. Games, especially tournaments, will destroy the peace and quiet for people walking on the nature trails and those living adjacent to the field. Hikers come.
My goodness.
For emphasis.
Hikers.
Did
come
you,
for
did
the
you call that up?
Hikers come for the beauty, peace and quiet, and bird song. They do not want the distraction of a noisy game. A golf course like this will be subject to constant trampling of the native plants, which will eventually kill them. This in turn will result in erosion during heavy rains. The wildlife depending on those plants will also disappear. As discs fly through the air at high speeds, inevitably, some will land on private neighboring property. Since they cost a pretty penny, players will be tempted to trespass in order to retrieve them, thereby creating an undue burden on the homeowners. And it's for these reasons I strongly oppose the creation of any disc golf course in the RA district.
Thank you.
So what are people's feelings about this? Would you like to?
Sure, sure.
Evening. I'm Stephen Record. Good evening to Warden, Madam Second Warden, if I may be the first to address you in that way, and members at large. I live at 1260 Old Mill Lane, in the Old Mill Farms vicinity. I'm here to respectfully express my opposition to the proposed zoning amendments to allow disc golf in the RA district. I want to make three straightforward points. The first is that this proposal is being framed as low impact recreation, but that's not accurate. As you have already heard, even the Block Island Land Trust classifies what it calls Frisbee golf as moderate impact active recreation. And that means regular foot traffic, organized use, and a level of intensity that goes beyond passive open space. The distinction matters, especially in our most sensitive zoning district, but it has not been adequately addressed. In addition, the proposed setbacks and buffer sizes do not reflect either current RA zone standards or the safety recommendations of the Professional Disc Golf Association, but instead were devised for the express purpose of allowing a non-professionally designed 18-hole disc golf course to be shoehorned into the middle of a small residential neighborhood on Plat 12. And for your information, this section of the PDGA safety net deals with course layout, safety zones. If you look at the third page of the handout, it shows the recommendations for general safety buffer zones. And between holes, maintain at least 50 feet of separation to prevent stray discs from endangering others. Near roads and property lines, keep a minimum of 150 feet from roads, parking lots, and residential or commercial properties. And play and spectator areas, establish a buffer zone of at least 75 feet.
Can I interrupt with a question? Is there anything in the ordinance that prohibits these buffer zones?
I don't believe so.
Right.
But the amendments that were proposed establish much smaller sizes for them.
And that's one of the reasons why I'm not comfortable with those amendments, and I think it should be heard at, if there is a special use application, should be heard at that time. And that was my reason for that, because
Yes.
not all properties are alike.
Yes, I agree. And I was very glad to hear you make that statement. I just want to reinforce.
Yep.
Okay, so getting back to my points of objection. Second is that the comprehensive plan does support recreation, but it very specifically emphasizes neighborhood scaled assets. Things like pocket parks, walking paths, community gardens, and shoreline access. Those are small-scale integrated uses with minimal or no impact on abutting properties and the quiet rural character of Block Island neighborhoods. The disc golf course, however, is something very different. It's a destination-style, single-purpose use, and it's not what the plan is describing. Third, and again, I'm making points that have been made already, the zoning logic here doesn't make sense. The proposed use table allows disc golf only in the RA district while prohibiting it everywhere else. That would effectively place a more intensive recreational use into the town's most rural and environmentally sensitive zone and nowhere else. That's hard to justify from a planning standpoint. The RA district is intended for low-density residential use and preservation-oriented open space. A single-purpose active recreational facility represents a significant departure from that intent, the consequences of which require most serious consideration. More broadly, the record before you, including the planner's report dated April 6th, 2026, does not provide enough evidence to support all the findings required under state law. In particular, there's no meaningful analysis of neighborhood impacts, no clear operational limits, and no demonstration that this use is truly consistent with the comprehensive plan as a whole. The uniform yes responses to statutory criteria indicate a lack of substantive analysis and do not provide a sufficient evidentiary basis for approval. My objection is not about opposing recreation. It's about making sure that when we change the zoning, we do it carefully, consistently, and based on solid evidence. For those reasons, I respectfully ask the council not to adopt these amendments without further analysis and much clearer standards.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
I ask, the planning board specifically says in their letter that the planning board has found the proposed amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And you're saying it's not consistent. What point do you differ with them on that?
My principal difference is what I mentioned about neighborhood scale residential assets, which if you look in chapter 4, I think it is, of the comprehensive plan on recreation, this is one of the things that's highlighted as, as a desirable goal to achieve, to provide such things. And those are things that are neighborhood scales, but also appropriate to a neighborhood that they might be located in, and of value to the residents of that neighborhood, who's who are the butters and otherwise neighbors of the recreation area, and sort of pocket parks and gardens and shoreline access trails and passive recreation uses that would be an asset to the neighborhood in which they're located. Disc golf is definitely not one of those.
So, Madam Counselor, if I could just chime in on that. I don't want to step on the solicitor's toes, but just generally, a zoning amendment is a legislative act. So the council's making the decision. You are receiving information not as an evidentiary standard, but as a legislative standard. So under the statute, the planning board is one of the bodies that advises you. They're required to make a finding on consistency with the comprehensive plan, and you are free to, as the legislative body, make your own decision on consistency with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Yep.
Anybody else? No.
Brought up really emphasize why this is a special use permit and why the zoning board is involved,
Right.
and why the zoning board applies certain criteria and findings of fact based upon consultation with the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board to address the specific concerns specific to the specific areas. So I think we're going down a rabbit hole and maybe a little bit of a red herring run with issues like professional standards, because, I don't see NBA certifying the basketball courts on Block Island. I don't see FIFA, sanctioning the soccer fields. It's just, I don't want to get too down into the weeds with this, but these are the standards that would be addressed before a local land use committee like the zoning board and the planning board, based upon, again, the opportunity for the neighbors to get involved at that level. And that's specifically what special use permits are for. That's why you issue public notice to the abutters within a 200-foot radius. That's why they are allowed to be heard in opposition to a specific petition for a specific property.
David?
David Lewis again. Just to reiterate one thing that I didn't say earlier, because it wasn't timely then, but it is timely now. Heidi told me specifically, in response to my concerns, that before it even went to a special, the next step after approving the ordinance as proposed, as originally proposed, the next step would be developing a management plan and the regulations that would go along with that as part of their application for the special use permit. So there's still a lot of work to be done by the powers that be.
It's an important point, David.
Thank you.
We all do.
So I think the question was from you was what your next steps, and
Yeah, we're just gonna, obviously we'll talk about that. I'm assuming that you don't mind if we want to change the language. Applicability.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
If obviously, I don't know what that language is specifically, but be happy to review it.
What's your flavor, guys? And the choices are, we can, if we want this broadening to more than the RA zone, it appears clear that we have to re-advertise that. My inclination is that ought to be more than the RA zone. That's just my gut on. I agree with what David just said, and actually with what Per just said, which is a lot of questions or concerns are questions for the special use permit process.
Right.
So
I don't know how people feel about this.
Well, my position is I don't, the 4 or 5 items put on there, I think that should be, I wouldn't support those as part of it. I can go either way with, I think eventually it should be expanded. Just like when Molly had talked about the arcade and expanding down, we can do it ourselves down the line, or if the rest of you feel that strongly, we can advertise and add it in now. I could go either way with that, but I am pretty much, I'd like to get those other items in the hands of the special application process.
Of the board. Yeah.
I am fully in support of more recreation everywhere. Every type, disc golf, pickleball, soccer. I don't play any of those things myself. But we live in a very small community. We don't have a gym. We need more things for our residents to do. And I'm very much in favor of whether it's just this zone or every zone. I'm in favor of it all. So
yeah. So I guess what I'm asking is, do you want to, what's people's feelings? Do we want to take out, the, uh, the language that prescribes the minimum buffer, et cetera, and then pass this? Do we want to see what the ordinance looks like with those changes in it, including the expansion to other zones? And continue this? I'm like, what Molly just said is kind of where I am on this.
What is the, if we, I don't need to relook at it. I know if you
Yeah.
take those 5 lines out,
Yeah.
it's gonna be from there. So that's not my concern. I guess I look at it and say, what's our time difference if we advertise it to include all zones, which I think it should include all zones, because, it may open up, a spot that someone didn't think they had. So what's the time difference on that? And so then it's done in one swoop. But other than expanding it, I don't really need, I mean, I want to make something clear. I want to take those out, not because I don't think they're important, extremely important. I want to just put them in the hands of the body that's going to be doing the review.
So Amy, if we wanted to see a version of this that included the I guess it would be RARBRC.
I have, if you want me to let you know what the zones were, they were RA, RB, RC, RCM. Going pretty well there for a minute.
Old Harbor Commercial.
Old Harbor Commercial,
Yep.
New Harbor Commercial. I just wasn't sure whether they were.
And Service
Okay,
Commercial
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
were the recommendations in the planning. board.
Oh, okay. And we can't make a motion just to do that. Our solicitor is saying that we can't just make a motion to add those and pass it.
No.
So this is the change to the zones plus the buffers, correct?
Yes.
So I would recommend that if they're gonna change the zones, you re-advertise and have a first reading, again, a public hearing on the same issue, just adding that material, just to be on the safe side.
But now, where do we stand on this list
Oh.
of very arbitrary feeling?
Those are the ones.
Those are the ones that
Those are, I'd like to see those basically I'd like to see those taken out and us add in the additional zones.
Okay. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, if I put a tennis court in my front yard, am I then limited to hours of operation? Maybe I am. I don't know. Don't
But
have a tennis court in my.
Those things, you'd go for your special use permit, and at that point, they would, the stipulations, it would be reviewed at that point.
So I think a tennis court at your house is not a recreational facility. I think a recreational facility is a different thing under the zoning
Oh,
ordinance.
got it, yep.
You know what I mean? Just like a community pool would be a recreational facility,
Okay,
but a
again,
pool at your house.
can say if we're re-advertising this, could we add pickleball courts? Could we add a dog park? Or why are we so limited on what we could have?
I just think
I
that's a
may.
separate process.
Okay, separate process.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right,
The
so
applicant is- Yep.
I would make a motion that we ask either the solicitors or whomever Amy feels is appropriate, prepare a draft that expands the zones and removes E, little E. Make sure I'm right on this. Please check me as I'm walking through this. It would be Article 4 criteria, Section 401D6 E, which that's the hours of operation, sanitation, maintenance of property and structures, communication, signage. Did I get that right? And if I didn't, please. Or do you want to,
No.
could you just come up, Steve, because people watch it. I can hear you, but
Stephen Record again, I think if you're going to remove specificity from the amendments, you need also to remove the specific sizes and nature of setbacks and buffers, which were provided
yeah,
in there.
I was just,
That-
I just
that needs to
noticed
get
that.
scratched
Thank
out,
you.
too,
Yeah.
please.
Keith, I was looking farther up. I was looking.
Okay.
I think the parking, the pets, the smoking, I think that should all be determined through this, I'm looking at take going down from, I just have to read A, but from
Yeah,
A
yeah.
down. Yeah, I think A down should really be dealt with at when the application is put in with for the special use permit.
So, so where I'm looking, so we're scrolling at this, at the same place.
Yep.
Bottom of page 1 of 3. There's 6, recreational facility disc golf. Are we in the same? Are we in
Yes.
are we all in the same place? We all, okay.
Starting with A, correct?
So I was only focusing on little e, not all of them. I see. Gotcha.
Yeah, because yeah, when you're talking parking, each site is going to be different.
Yep.
And same thing with, there may be, well, anyways, I think it's self-explanatory on that.
Having said that, I mean, this is part of why I was asking for the primer on the special use permit, because I do want any SUP to consider buffers, to consider parking, to, like all of those things. I'm just not sure they belong in an ordinance. I guess I'm back to the same gosh darn question I asked. half an hour ago.
I would advise keeping something on page 2.
Yeah, I was
it
gonna
could
agree
be,
with
it could be rewritten, but I think you want some sort of specific and objective thing you can tie the special use permit to.
Because if you don't have the specific criteria, then it's granted automatically. You might as well just have a permitted use, a P, rather than a special use.
Okay, how about this? How about if we have a new draft, because it has to be advertised for purposes of the zone expansions. We have that, and James, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, but we may feel that some of these are more appropriate than others for this, or there may be an additional one. Are those things we can do without advertising? So we're not doing this thing in August?
Do you mean you want to add?
Yeah, we may want to add, we may want to subtract.
Right. I think the key here is, well, the key is to re-advertise for the zone change. That's important. If you want to adjust the special use permit requirements, adding or taking away, I think that can be done without advertising, but it should be published in your agenda before you vote. Does that make sense? Unless it's a very minor change.
So James, let me ask you this, like, what if we were to simplify this page that has the A through E to just say that in the special use permit, the following things would be, whatever, hammered out: the neighborhood considerations, conduct, pets, parking, management. But just leave it at that. So it's a template, like a checklist of things that would have to be addressed for each item.
So that's what this is. This is criteria for special use permit.
These other details.
Right.
I would defer to Peter, but I think it would have to be a little bit more detailed than that. That's almost, I think it's a little too general. I don't know what you think, Peter.
But wouldn't that be part of the special use permit?
Could you repeat what the language is?
Let me ask a question. What does, if you ask for a special use permit, you go before the board. If the board had, you're saying, if we don't have it written here, the board, then what's the purpose of having the, going before the board if the board can't put restrictions? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think that.
So
and I-
yeah, that's a bill that hasn't passed, right? But certainly would make it. If you might recall that the town used to do a lot more development plan review and has had to move away from that because of the way the state changed the enabling act. So the same thing is happening with special use permits. And the items on page 2 are really the things that make or break a disc golf application for a special use permit.
So neighborhood considerations, the conduct of the people.
Yeah, but
So if I may, I'm willing to live with A, B.
no, I'm not
and-
going to
and
live
E.
with that though.
Okay.
This
Yeah,
is about.
yeah, this is about-
About just
All right.
what you have there. Okay, I want to make sure that we're making it fair across the board for everyone. So if one goes up, whether it be,
Yep.
you know, a Ball O'Brien or whatever, that we have this in place. I don't want our hands being tied.
Understood.
And I really want that review process. Now, I know there's, and I don't have the background, and I wish Karen was on this meeting also, of what the review process is, you know, and the scope that the review process has to say you must have 1, 2, 4 pocket spots with a bathroom based on what's presented. You know, and otherwise, we'd have to have everything under the sun in this, so.
And part of my rationale is, let's err on the side of over advertising. So that,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah,
that's really what
But
I'm,
we're gonna be back at the same time, we'd say, you know, you can't, this has smoking, the 6 parking spaces, well, that's gonna be determined,
yep.
and, you know. So I know some projects have to go through a plan review based on the size or whatever. Peter, am I correct?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So
I feel like we're going in a circle.
no,
Someone else can
so
jump in.
yeah, Bill, here's you and I are in the same place on this.
Right.
I'm actually, sometimes have to put this hat on of how do we make sure we do this procedurally correctly and not have to re-advertise it?
Sure.
If we monkey around with these, or if we strike them, I think it's possible that Peter comes back to us at our next meeting and says, here's how the special use permit process operates. You really should have these 5 in there, or these 2 in there, or, you know, what have you. So I don't want to leave those out of a re-advertised ordinance and then be stuck in a position of adding stuff in that hasn't been advertised and we have to re-advertise them again.
Just to add on to what the solicitor said about advertising, the zoning enabling act specifically allows the council to amend the zoning ordinance during the hearing. You just have to then allow the public to comment on the amendment. So it gets really tricky if the public doesn't have a document they can look at that's tracking the changes.
Right.
So I think the spirit of what the solicitor said absolutely needs to be followed. And there's additional kind of other process issues with advertising. But you might have the ability to change a line or 2 as long as you're reading it to the public and then giving them the opportunity to comment on that.
I understand if it's for advertising, but there's more than a line or 2 here that I'm not comfortable with, just so.
You, as I say, you and I are on the same page. I think we all are. I think all of us are. I just don't want to get us caught in a new advertising cycle. That's you following me? Right? Making any sense?
Well, I
I'm
like to
just-
hear what Amy says.
Are you ready for a clarifying question, or are you gonna make a motion of some sort?
I'd like a clarifying.
A
question.
clarifying question is a wonderful idea.
I was following until your last sentence where you said you don't want to go through additional advertising.
No. I don't want to go through. I know we're going to have to go through it one cycle. I don't want to have to put people through 2 cycles of re-advertising.
So I think if we look at the June 1st, June 3rd set of meetings, we have an opportunity to digest some of the feedback that has been shared tonight identify, in conjunction with a summary of the special use permit process, what the bare minimum set of restrictions need to exist in this ordinance in order for it to hold up throughout the process.
Yep.
Bring that language back to that meeting as a proposed red line of the proposed ordinance for your discussion prior to re-advertising with the expansion of the zones.
Okay.
So-
That would be one re-advertising cycle.
Yes.
Does that
Does
make
anyone-
sense?
James, Peter, want to correct that?
I think that's accurate.
Does that make sense to people? What's the date? We're going to continue this to June 1st or June 3rd?
Any preference?
I think we should do this not at a work session.
Then the first.
Can I have a motion to continue this to June 1st? Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Per. Good to see you.
Good
I've
to see
seen
you
your
all. See you
name.
in a couple of weeks.
You guys could probably drive together.
I mean, the charge on it is okay. So keep basically.
Yes, yes, we could have done that tonight theoretically, but I think that seems to be kind of a fundamental principle for everybody, so let's do it the way we got to do it, you know? All right, Amy, you're up. Oh, no, I gotta convene a public hearing, right? Yes, can I have a motion to convene a public hearing on the property tax classification issue, please? Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, Amy.
Okay, I expect this will be faster. Um, What we are looking at today is the proposed language that extends the opportunity for homestead exemption through 2028.
So we sunsetted this. And
We've
this,
just
and
sunset-
this,
We've extended this.
you've extended the sunset. Do you think it's wise to extend the sunset or should we simply just do it?
Suggested you just did it and you wanted to extend the sunset.
Oh, did you?
My thing is, we've had it for the 2 years. If we want to change it, we'd have to open up the ordinance anyways to change it. Do we see a need to sunset it?
The rationale there was to keep it in the forefront of everyone's minds with the idea of continuing to push for the expansion and the next layers of homestead related exemptions for mixed use, for rental properties that are rented year round, so that we'd be forced to either confront what we did not accomplish in those 2 years or hopefully get those done in the intervening time. So it was an accountability mechanism.
Yes.
But usually a sunset is whether you want something to be, you want to review whether you want to continue that. And I think we've established what we want to continue
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
I don't see the need to sunset it.
It was, the sunset
Would you
was
have to re-advertise
established.
if we did that?
No.
Okay.
So where do we stand on adding the other two features that we wanted to add to this?
It's got a lot of logistical considerations that are up in the air, from state statute to administration of the assessing tools, vision appraisal, and all the line items in that, and how we can deploy that in a way that's accurate. So there are a lot of moving parts, and we didn't, on top of manpower capacity and the heavy lift it will take to do this. we didn't want to lift when the other parts were moving, excuse me. So it's likely that we can come up with something in the next 2 years. You know, the big moving part at the moment is the 513 ADU components and trying to create statutes that can reasonably rely on state law in a way that we haven't been able to do in the last few years.
Can we take out C? Can we take out the grandfather without re-advertising? Because this needs to be done tonight.
I believe so, James.
This isn't a zoning amendment, so the same regulations don't apply.
Nope.
I would make a motion to eliminate C. That would eliminate the grandfather, right?
Yep.
Second.
Any discussion?
By grandfather, you mean sunset?
Did I say grandfather? I meant sunset. Yeah.
Yeah.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Can we have a motion on the? Do you want a motion on the ordinance itself?
Yes.
Can I have a motion on the remaining ordinance?
Make a motion that we accept the ordinance with the removal of C.
Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Jesus, that was a land speed record. That was impressive. All right.
With the change.
Yeah, with the change. All right, we need a public hearing date, number 9. What's your suggestion, Laurel? I have a motion to set a June 17th public hearing date for Article 3, Sections 306E and 307E. Second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Next one. We need to set a public hearing date for amendments to development plan review, yada, yada.
We're not doing this one?
That's why I didn't make the
I
motion.
didn't.
June 17th.
June 17th?
This is
Can I have
one of
a
those
motion to
pending
s-
state laws.
Oh, okay. Can I have a motion to set a public hearing date on item number 10, criteria for special use permits, et cetera, for July 18th? July
So
5th?
the legislature might amend this pretty substantially, and we might need to rewrite the amendment.
Maybe we need to do it maybe we just set it for September.
I think we're taking no action.
Taking no action. Great.
Yeah.
So item 11, this is to set a public hearing for Article 1, General Section 113, Nonconformance, and Article 4, criteria for special use permits. June 17th. Is there a second? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Public hearing date for the Rhode Island Veterinary Initiative, trailers. June 17th. Sue. Did you get new sneakers?
I
Look
should
at
give it-
you.
Just didn't what?
Did you get new sneakers?
Are they squeaky? I only just want to point out one thing, on the agenda, it links to the specific request for the zoning amendment. And the link that I use takes us to the original zoning exemption request that we made, which was changed before the planning board meeting because the town
Great.
planner or the consultant planner suggested that we should be applying for an exemption to section 111, number 23, as opposed to section 112.
Great. Fortunately, we're setting a public hearing for a change to that.
Okay, good.
So,
So I
thank you
just
for
wanted to
pointing
make
that
sure
out.
that
Yep.
didn't matter before we go. forward.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
What date did you say again? We have a motion made and seconded for June 17th, I believe. No, we don't yet? Okay, can I have a motion to set a public hearing date of June 17th for the Block Iron Fashion?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. We need to set a public hearing date. Exemption from taxes, Division 3, Veterans Authority and effective date. We have to do this all the time. June 17th. Can I have a motion for June 17th for that one?
So moved.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Marianne, you've waited and waited and waited. It's so good to see you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well, thank you. Appreciate your getting me on the agenda, and I have all of this.
It was our
verbiage to
pleasure
read.
to. You're always welcome,
Thank
and
you.
we like to hear from you. Thank you.
I apologize because there's a lot of words, and I'm just going to start reading because I know I'm just sure. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of the Manassas Tribe to respectfully ask that the town council to consider a continuing resolution. I know we originally put in the agenda request for an MOU, but I think maybe resolution is the more proper way to address it. But you'll tell me. A continuing resolution authorizing Manassas tribal camps and supporting non-commercial, traditional fishing and shell fishing practices. But it is a request actually to respectfully continue the continuing resolution that allows the Manassas tribal members and authorized tribal guests to hold tribal camps connected to cultural, education, ceremonials, community activities. The tribe is still here, but we're struggling to stay. The issue is that many of the tribal members cannot afford to stay on island long enough to gather and to teach our children and to have continued ceremonies or programs on our ancestral properties.
Mhm.
The town's own ordinances already recognize written exceptions in permit-based approvals. On Chapter 9, Article 2, Section 9-21 allows the first warden, second warden, or the chief of police to grant written exceptions to organized groups, including identifying the organization, the responsible adult, the areas occupied, and the period authorized. So we're asking the town to use that same practical structure through a continuing resolution so the tribe does not have to repeatedly ask individual permission for each gathering, camp, or related activity.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm sorry, it's more for Amy. Do we have the ability under the our shellfishing ordinance, which has various licensure categories, to establish, for example, one for Manassas tribal members?
We could establish it by ordinance. We don't have a space for exceptions without amendment.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay. This is such a, I want to ask this the right way. Is there some manner of identification?
ID cards.
You have
ID cards.
you have ID cards? Because I was just thinking we could get some knucklehead come into the
No, and we,
and assert that they're whatever.
and that'll happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If I can, any questions about it, but typically that's the standard in other tribal communities as well, as you can imagine in the large tribal community on the mainland, but here it's a small community, and so it's a little bit more difficult, but we're hoping to expand a little bit and have some camps and be able to teach our children, kind of our cultural ways on a campsite and not have to have a neighbor call and say, hey, there's a bunch of tents over there, kind of thing. And then we'd like to be able to, teach them the clamming and fishing and have summer camps of our own tribal members that
You'd be
can't
surprised.
do right now.
Maybe wouldn't be surprised how frequently when there's a tent somewhere.
That's why we're standing here.
Right, Amy?
That's why I'm
You
here.
get on, I think
We don't need any more issues.
see that tent.
What is the area that you want?
So, I mean, currently we have our tribal properties. I have our personal family properties up on Beacon Hill. We're pursuing an opportunity to use tribal lands or ancestral lands that would be donated to us, or the sites that would be donated with us. We're working with the the Block Island Land Trust, Block Island Conservancy to get cultural access to properties, open space that we can actually have programs on.
Paul, is there any public safety aspect to this of, you know, occasional setting up of camps like this? I need to put you on the spot. Yeah, sorry, but I did.
It depends on
I
the
guess
size of the gathering.
Say that again?
It depends on the size of the gathering.
Right.
And it's not, I'm not gonna say it's not necessarily public safety, and I guess this falls under all of it, but it's rescue fire.
Yeah, right.
You know,
That's
that whole, it's us as a whole, it's not
Yeah,
just the police
yeah.
department. And again, as I said, it would depend on the size of the gathering.
Mhm.
If you have 20, probably not so much. If you have 200.
Right.
Yeah, all
Right,
different
right,
things.
right.
If I could share, we do have, actually, our tribal communities have been certified in that crowd control, and we've prepared for these opportunities to, you know, as the crowd grow, to be prepared to address them. But in terms of the programming that we're looking at, it wouldn't be a 200 crowd, a little bit too much. We're not ready for that quite yet.
Right.
Right, quite yet. We'd like to see that day coming, but we're not ready for that. Our tribal groups, honestly, they've started, like even our youth groups I have on mainland, our summers camps that we have for the kids. It started with 20 students. And the last camp that we had, and last year I didn't get to do much, because I've got priorities, but we've had up to 120 students in a camp. But that was on mainland. I don't suspect we're going to have the same kind of thing here.
I like the idea personally that you come and you tell us the specific date, time, and what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that as opposed to, I think for a couple of reasons. One, I think that so it ends up being publicly, acknowledged, just like when the Boy Scouts will come down the beach and do a cleanup. So people are aware of it from that end of it. Plus, I think the other thing is, but I also think that, you know, there's a way that it could be streamlined. So, you know, not to make it a lot of fear.
We would like to make sure that we're certainly working in partnership with the group, because we certainly want you all to know what we're doing when we need help to be there, because we're going to rely on you in lots of ways as a partner in the community. So we absolutely intend to coordinate and let folks know when we're here.
So just to clarify, when I go back to the clamming license, so when I looked up, the state says it does not issue a separate tribal clamming
Correct.
license.
It would
But
be
you're asking us to
the-
do one locally that would be a separate, what sort of, are you just looking for a separate category? Are you looking for separate rules? Are
Just so that we wouldn't have to, like, for example, you have a rule right now that says if you're over 65, which I'm graced to being able to do, right? So I don't have to ask for that license, but my son or my daughter would have to. And I like to hope to make sure that they're going to be running some of these camps with us, but that they wouldn't have to pay for a license to do that. Just show their tribal ID when they're doing a program.
So the exception that you're looking for is the cost.
Yes.
I think,
fee.
well,
Yeah.
I just want to jump in because I think you might have been answering I think you might not have been answering. Molly was asking about the shell fishing piece.
Okay. I'm
right?
going to read my
So
little
where-
blurb.
And I think Mary Ann was answering about the tribal gathering camps stuff. So I
So
just
the-
wanted to make sure
Oh,
we're
Just gonna
Mary
say,
Ann was asking.
yeah.
I think Amy,
Not the harbor master, but I am more
No,
flexible
no, no.
on clamming than camping.
You asked the question I wanted, you asked the question I wanted to hear the answer to. I just wasn't sure that Mary Ann heard your question.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
so as I understand it, New Shoreham's shell fishing rules currently require a town shellfish license to clam on Block Island waters, and the town's website states that the wardens enforce shellfish ordinances and regulations. The town code also provides that no person age 14 or older may take shellfish from the Great Salt Pond without obtaining a shellfish license from the agency or person empowered by the town council to issue the license. The tribe is asking the town to support a lawful authorization, accommodation, waiver, exception, whatever pathway would be appropriate for us to be able to do non-commercial traditional use in coordination and obviously according to appropriate state agency rules. Conservation is important to us too. So basically for us to not have to go to the town license if we have a ID.
Or show your town ID and obtain a license at no fee.
I don't mind that either. Just as long as we didn't have to go through any kind of, you kind of get stopped at. The only quandary I have there is sometimes they might want to be out go fishing and camping, and then it's the office is closed and they don't, when they come down, it's not convenient to get to the office on time. Oftentimes for town meetings, we can't make it. We can't, I can do it. I have a home, but not everybody can.
Just so that I'm clear, and I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. A category of license that said Manistee tribal member, whatever, subject to things like the take limit, you know, those kinds of things, that would be an acceptable approach from the tribe's perspective.
Yes.
Okay. That's very helpful to know. On the camping, for me, that is about two things. One, I just asked Paul about, which is police, fire, rescue, making sure that people, and part and parcel of that is making sure people know that this activity is occurring, and that's mostly so that my phone doesn't blow up. But, I'm sorry, it's a little selfish.
Understood.
But also the intensity of that use is I think what we would get questions about.
Sure.
Like, is it
People are still coming to know us.
Yes.
And that,
Yeah.
but it's fully understood. And
Yeah.
we hope to, we're going to do our level best to get to know the community more and have
Yes.
more partnerships in the community versus strange viewings of events happening.
Yes. Amy, do you have any thoughts about
You,
this?
you would be talking about like a one time a year something, or
Hopefully not. Hope that's the goal. It's versus it's right now we've got this powwow that happens every year, right? And so everyone's like, I can't make it. They're staying at cousins and friends' house and taking the ferry over and hoping that they make it there on time, right? But we're hoping to be able to have campsites so that they can literally just fill up my lawn with tents, as many people can get in there, right? But then we're also looking to have partnerships with the Conservancy or maybe the Land Trust, and maybe across from the Indian Council, the Indian Cemetery, you might see a bunch of tents and folks are, kind of camping out at the day. We don't know. There's some more private spots we would prefer to have access to. And maybe Dory can share. Anyway, she was sharing there's some sites that we're looking at that are much more private, and we would prefer to use those sites to camp and have programs.
I think the concept sounds great, but I think the devil's in the details. We
Sure.
would have to, to me, I think it would have to be case by case. How many people, what's expected, just like we do when there's a special event, what are the provisions for bathrooms and so forth. So
As you can imagine, it's a camping situation. So we'll, kind of evaluate that as if it's a program where mom's coming, we're going to want to have porta potties, right? If it's a kids camp, it's going to be, just like you would see at the Sands camp. It shouldn't be any different than that. I don't know why we would, consider us to be different than that, right? For all intent and purpose. The reason I'm here is so that we won't have to ask for every single event. Our hope is to not have just a 1-year thing, and we've got a plan for it. As you can imagine, we don't have a staff. So we're asking for monies all the time just to be able to bring people down. So it's a little easier for us to have a standing rule that says if we're going to camp, we're going to call the police department, we're going to let them know we're camping at such and such a site, and we'll have maybe 10 tents or 12 tents. We'll have 6 kids or 12 kids.
for a second and say I'm against any standing, like everything would be individually decided, not
Every single
not
time.
a blanket, like, hey, anytime, anywhere, anytime, any place.
I'm not yet. We're not inferring anytime, any place. We're actually talking about communicating where we would want to be doing it ahead of time. So it's a coordination, but not asking for permission. So now I'm asking now because we're looking to do in July, we'll have our powwow. But are we only meeting once a month? And then we'll have to, by the time we get it to folks and do the programming. So then
Do you know,
sometimes it's going to be contingent on what grant monies are available. So we have a timing scenario happening. So ultimately, what we're asking for is a standing rule. Yes, we can do
Mhm.
camping, but we do expect and anticipate that we will be communicating with the local safety department, the fire department, the police department. This is what we're looking to do. This is what our, our timeline is, and everybody's known and aware so that we can be doing things in a safely manner too.
you look like you were taking a breath. I try to be. Well, first of all, I have no problem with creating a category of, I mean, I hope it's not offensive for me to use the term license, but
Mhm.
that's the term we use, so
Mhm.
I'm going to use it. I'm very open to that. I think that's something that we have within our power to do. I would very much like for because it's virtually impossible. You've seen tonight. You had to witness this. We're like four people and a room negotiating what language should be is not it's like, but if you would work with Amy or someone she designates to have clarity around what you're asking for on the appropriate visitation camping,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I think you find the four of us very open to that.
Okay.
I'm thrilled you're here. Welcome. We want to do things and do them the right way. So
Sure. So if I would just, then I'll ask it this way. Would you prefer an MOU or a resolution?
fortunately, the two things you've chosen
Mhm.
are ordinanceable.
Mhm. Okay.
So
you
we
prefer
don't.
by ordinance?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
honestly, when you get into MOUs and have all those moving parts,
You
when
got
you
it.
have people who are inclined to figure this stuff out, let's just figure it out.
You got it. If I can ask then Amy, what's a good time to meet with you to
Yeah,
punch this out?
let's find some time and we'll draft some proposed language.
that
I
work?
think having it in the ordinance is important for other people to understand why that doesn't apply to them.
Yes. Yes. Right.
An
right.
MOU.
Yeah, not for you, but yeah,
Right.
yeah. That's a really good point.
So that it's clear when somebody may see
Mhm.
camping, for example,
Yes.
why that's not a blanket exception.
Okay.
But yes.
All right. We'll work something out. Thank you. Appreciate
Wonderful,
the
Marion.
entertaining-
Thank you
All
for
right.
coming. Thank you. It
And
was great to meet you.
Any questions or anything that you have got a question about this, I'd love to answer that ahead of time.
Terrific.
So that we can,
Great.
make sure we're all comfortable.
All right.
Thanks
Thank you.
again, folks. We'll find the rain.
Oh, I know. Are you? All right, Mom. See ya. Car rentals. Bill, you want to kick this off?
Sure. I think we had, James had given us, well, let me back up. We had asked a while ago if we could, how we could regulate car rentals, either by licensing and so forth. Because right now, car rentals are, they're prohibited. And there's a couple of properties that operate them because they were grandfathered by zoning. And as we know, there was a notice of violation given out just, I think it was last week, because a property was renting cars out of a zone that was not regulated. And part of that notice of violation, the person has 20 days to cease and desist. And the problem is, I don't think that we have a good handle on being able to control rental vehicles the way we do, like say with mopeds and so forth. James, you had given us a ruling, I think, in the past that said for us to license them, there would have to be a zoning change, but also we would need a legislative authority in order to do that. I'd like us to give some consideration to that and to try to vet out what the pros and the cons are. To me, the pro to having the licensing is we're not dealing with the grandfather situation where, what we currently have now. I think if they were licensed, we would be able to limit the number of them, the times of operation, very much like we do with the mopeds. And I think it would give us better control that if someone is storing too many cars or renting more than they should be, we would have the mechanisms in place to regulate that much better than what we do now. As it is now, whether the car rental places, whether the optics are they're renting more than they should be or not, we really don't have. Our hands are kind of tied, and we've been not very successful in coming down to something that I think meets everyone's intention or happiness to thinking that it's being utilized only within with the parameter that they're supposed to. So I guess there's two things to this. If it was a legislative, obviously it wouldn't take place till next year. But I would like to ask if James and if in the council, if we could look at what some of the pros and cons are about going this route, what we give up and what we gain. And there may be things that I'm missing, I don't know, but this isn't something that has to be done tomorrow. It would be legislative, it would be going in the next legislative round. But I think that is the type of thing we need to vet out early, so we would have a proper approach. So that was my reason for putting it on here.
James, I don't know if this is the same question that Bill has asked, but if it is, too bad. I think what we're looking for in this particular area, what we have, when I say we, I don't even necessarily mean the council. I mean, we get these, we get people saying they're renting more than they're supposed to be renting. Okay. What is the right path to ensure that we have the tools that we need to regulate this activity?
So
is it new statutory authority? Is it, by the way, I think the biggest thing is probably not legislative or policy, but resources to actually enforce this stuff. Because you gotta stand down there and count the number of cars that are coming out of that lot, I guess. But anyway, sorry.
Right. The regulations you have now are a lot more restrictive than anywhere else, I think, in the state, based on your zoning rules. If you want to actually go further than that, I think you'll have to seek legislative action, or, like you said, enhance the enforcement you already have, which is difficult to do.
But James, I feel like we don't have a lot of teeth, and the zoning, that wheel moves so slow. There's a notice of violation. I mean, in the one we have now is a piece of property that isn't even one of the grandfathered properties. And so as I read the notice of violation, you have 20 days to cease and desist. So that means you got 20 days to go and rent out. It's just that, that's fine on a project where someone's putting up a building and you get it stopped. But on something like this, I just feel like our hands are somewhat tied compared to what we have, like with the vehicle moped licenses. So I guess
you're exactly right.
License, from a legislative point of view, if we had the license, are we going to have a more immediate, because we can pull that license, the person doesn't have it, and so forth. What's the downside?
The downside of
by going legislatively and regulating rental vehicles, whether it be cars and golf carts, by license.
Yeah, that's really your policy choice, how you want to proceed. If you want to go the legislative route, that's probably the best way to get teeth into it. Because say in South Kingstown, someone wants to open up an enterprise rent-a-car, right. They just have to get the right license, right approval in town and do it. They're not restricted. The only place it is really, I think, New Shoreham.
Right.
that have been done for the first time demonstrated seriousness of purpose about this.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you speak in the mic? I apologize.
I didn't have my microphone on and I wasn't near it.
Sorry.
But I think we have, I think the steps that land use has taken recently, and I'll use just this most recent one. I'm sure there are others that I'm not aware of, but have demonstrated more of a seriousness of purpose around this than we have in the past. That's my take. I think you guys have been much more serious about it.
Can I just ask Amy a question? So let's say you issue, or the town issues a notice of violation to someone who's renting vehicles from a property that isn't grandfathered in, isn't permitted to do that. Is there a fee attached? Like, is there a monetary penalty? Or what
Not initially. That's exactly what,
prevents them from just continuing to do it and ignore the town?
it'll wind up in court, but they have a process to go through. And so that what people are frustrated by often is the legal process, the due process that they have to appeal.
Due process is most important when it's me.
And, so that's exactly the situation that is in your packet today, a notice of violation for engaging in a use that is not permitted on that property.
How long does that take?
First threshold is, I thought it was 30 days, but it may be 20.
I think it
see if I
was,
can find it.
yeah, that was in the beginning.
It said the vehicles must be removed within 20 days.
And
But
the
it says the activity should
and the
immediately
activity
cease.
should immediately cease.
Right.
And so, doesn't just go silent in practice. There's been ongoing engagement between the zoning enforcement officer and the involved parties. We have a good sense of where things are. And as Keith alluded to, are trying to be much more aware of those timelines so that on day 21 or day 31, we are ready with the next action. But we can't jump those steps.
And I'm not asking to, nor is this is a knock on the building department. I think they're doing what they have within those parameters. My point to this is that I think we have better control. Example, currently with, if you have a license now to rent cars on a grandfathered spot, you have no obligation to provide the registrations, the licenses, your contracts, any of that to the town. That's not required as part of your operation. Currently with our moped legislation, the police department has access at any given time to all of the contracts. And we have our numbering system and so forth from that end of it. So I guess the big thing for me is, if we could get legislation, a good pass, and we could present a good case, I think the fact is, we don't want to also open it. So now we have a license, and do we suddenly, can limit it? That would be a big thing. If you say we have a license now, and now, you have to rent out 500 cars. So that's what I'm asking. What's the pro and con to it? If we can license it and limit it, then I think there's some teeth. If we can't limit it with the license, open up, we may be better with what we have right now and try to work with them. But that's the crux of it. And so I guess the answer, and I don't know, James, or whether, it's, if we were to pass require a license similar to the mopeds, would we have that ability?
You could, but I think it would be immediately challenged and they'd prevail in court. That's my guess.
But challenged by whom?
The proprietors, I assume.
So the current, like we did with the mopeds, when we initiated this going back, what we did was we actually made the number. So anyone with them that were grandfathered weren't aggrieved. We allowed them. So we allowed them a license to people that had it. So if you were to do this, and I would assume that we passed the law that you could have, we have 3 licenses, 3 car rental licenses, and you limited it, didn't reduce what they had because they would be aggrieved at that point. Then I don't know where the where they're, you know, where they would be aggrieved with for monetarily,
That's a possibility.
you know? So the intent isn't real clear. The intent isn't to box anyone out who currently has it.
Okay.
It's to allow those that have it. And this is exactly the way we did it with the mopeds. There were the 5 operators that we gave out 5 licenses. The number ended up getting worked out later. So it wasn't to put them out of business or anything. So the idea would be that, you know, if we licensed it, they would be licensed, but now there would be criteria with that. And who knows, I mean, maybe if maybe approach the ones that have it. Well, I'll tell you right now, I know, for instance, I think John Leone has a license through the state. He operates the car on Paul Filippi's property because Paul Filippi is the owner. So, and John, and he runs it. So John Leone, he might look at us and say, hey, listen, I'm giving an opportunity. I could present a better place to rent my cars with my license. So it may work the opposite way. They may be in favor of that. I think it's at least worth exploring because currently right now, I feel like our hands are tied. We have 25 cars in one spot and you know, this frustration that's happening with it.
Should we put this on our list of things that we consider this fall as we put together our legislative asks? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would even go further. I think whether, you know, like when we looked at the moped legislation, James, we tapped into some people that had specialized experience in that field from that end of it, you know, whether you may have it or someone that might have been down this road before. So, you know, can say, hey, listen, you know, you're going up a road that's not worth going up, or you do from that end of it, you know, to explore it out.
Yeah, the one of the things that I worry about is there are, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but there are risks of opening this can of worms. Like I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we do a bill limits there. Let's just make this up. There are 2 licensed. New Shoreham may limit the number of licenses to 2, you know, that kind of thing. Well, if I'm I don't even know if I want to say this actually. Okay, I'm going to stop. I think it's fraught with potential unintended consequences, or not fraught with. That sounds like there are too many. I think there are risks associated with that up there.
And I don't, and that may be the case. That's why I want to vet this out to see, you know, let's put this to rest. Is it something worth doing, looking at? What are those risks and weigh them out, and we actually weigh them out.
May I?
I feel like right now it's kind of there and kind of not, we haven't really vetted it to that level.
I just had, I it would be very helpful, Laurel, I think, this question's probably for you and James. I think if we're going to talk about this, can we talk about it in a closed session? Because I worry a little bit about so I'm thinking, like, if I were retained by somebody to you know, walk me through the process to do this, one of the things that I would invariably do is say, well, if I were an opponent of this legislation, here are the things that I would do. And I wouldn't want anybody but my prospective client to hear that, you know? And I don't, it's just like strategically, we have to be really wise around how we talk about this, how we protect ourselves, if this is something that, you know, we want to explore further. Right?
Yeah, and it may be, we don't, but
May I make a suggestion?
Please.
Maybe tomorrow I can talk to Amy and Millie about how to address this either in open session or executive session at the next meeting or the meeting after. The strategy idea and how to address it with litigation aspects in mind, plus how we do it legislatively or some other route.
And when we start talking about closed session, I think it's important certain times, but what I want to make abundantly clear the intention isn't to put anyone, out of business or to, particularly the current people that have licenses. It's about a better way to regulate the system, which I think will be beneficial to them and to the town. So I don't want that to.
It's a good thought, James. That'd be helpful. Thank you.
I just see James, I really see these golf carts really taking off down the line, and I just really want to be ahead of this curve.
All right, beautiful. Are we all set with that?
Looking forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Homestead, Amy. I know, right? I do the same thing.
Make sure it's addressed.
Can you hear us? You hear us, James?
Yes, that'd be great, James. Thank you.
What'd you say?
I said that'd be great. Thank you.
So
Great,
please
great.
Address it to everyone.
Yes.
Thank you. Amy, Homestead.
Stead. So as part of the ordinance, we annually need to set the homestead exemption amount, which the last 2 years has been set at 20%. This year, it's a little bit harder to give you estimates because there's a lot of movement in the grand list through the revaluation hearing process. I don't think I've ever seen this much uncertainty in our potential tax rate, but we've done our best estimates. Proportionately, this framework will hold, meaning, Bill, this is a question you asked 2 years ago. If our exemption amount is 20%, what's the impact to the non-exemption taxpayers? And so that's what's on the bottom here. At 20%, their taxes look at about a 2.1% increase when you redistribute that exemption amount. That's what I handed you at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So at 20%, it's about a 2.1% increase. At 10%, obviously about 1.1%. On $1 million house, you're looking at an exemption value at 20% of about $738 based on our current estimates. I'm happy to talk through any changes people want, or if there's an inclination to stay at 20.
So if it at the 20, Amy, even though there's evaluation, some will go up, some will go down, but that percentage does still remain the same.
It's going to be directionally correct. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Very strongly, 20 is a big number.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay.
I think you did a very good job. Do a very reasonable, real slow increase. It's not out of proportion. It's not numbers.
I think, I'm okay with 20%, but I will say when compared to towns, I think we are on the top end of the percentage for homestead tax, for communities. So I certainly wouldn't want to look at anything above that.
We cannot go above that by state statute.
Right. So we're definitely on the top
Yep.
end, from that. So,
So moved.
aye.
We are not going to do financial reports. You may get them along the way, and we can always ask questions as needed. So onto the town manager's report. A few things first, starting with Laurel. Yay. who has completed the Supervisor Management Institute at Roger Williams and also sponsored by the trust. In addition, also added her mental health first aid certification, which is tremendous. So thank you so much. Charlene, yeah. Charlene also. Charlene also did a leadership program this spring with the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns Municipal Leadership Academy, and they had their graduation this month as well. Just tremendous. Couple things I would point out. Human Services did a really fantastic meeting between recovery supports professionals and stakeholders on the island around strengthening all aspects of that program. My understanding, it was really well received, and there are a lot of good plans to help, particularly those peer-to-peer programs, be more effective. So that was a great effort on behalf of Human Services. The DEM parking program have all those tags have been allocated. Again, looking at that list of applicants and being able to serve everyone who requested a pass, and we had the perfect right amount. We do have 2 remaining as an emergency, which is what we had intended. But it really did feel good to be able to help people with access through the summer months. So we appreciate DEM's support of that program. In Public Works and Highways, you're seeing a lot of that spring cleanup happening. Mike Shea appointed to the Rhode Island Cemetery Association Board of Directors, which is great. In harbors, lots of things going on, of course, this time of year. The department received their assent from CRMC for the Upweller, so they're getting that up and running right now. They also installed some snow fencing and beach grass along the East Dock in Old Harbor to try to catch that sand as it comes over. So hopefully, one, snow fencing keeps people off of that grass so it can grow and take root. But that may be beefed up a little bit over the winter as well to try to block some of that sand. Recreation weekend programming is back on, which had taken a pause for the school play. They are also looking for camp counselors in particular. If anyone knows an interested individual, preferably one with housing. That's been a challenge for the camp counselors this year. And again, Shad Bloom was on the 9th with 191 registrants, and playground equipment replacement is underway. At the library, the big news is the new elevator. Installation's complete, fully functional. That was, as you might expect for an old building, a challenging process. And so really wanted to acknowledge Bob and the library staff, Charlene, Tom, the library trustees, and everyone that it took to make that happen, which is great. They have their Bake Book and Bloom sale on Saturday for those who are interested. And then a few things, I expect in June to be able to do an update on the Rural Health Transformation Grant with a little bit more specificity around those year 1, year 2 programs. We've already started working on deployment between the Department of Human Services, the Rescue Squad, and some of that early equipment work. Obviously, Health Services has the bulk of the effort there. It's taken a little bit of time to get the documentation, which is why we haven't been able to give you an update, but hopefully in June we plan to do that.
You've gotten through the part of the process where it's
I believe so. Yes. I think we have a final list, again, just for year 1, year 2, but that's what we'd like to present to you. Friday, May 29th, Liberty tree planting ceremony at 1 o'clock at the Old Town Center. This got me to say for the first time out loud, semi-quincentennial which I didn't realize I had never said, but in recognition of those efforts, if anyone would like to join. And then attached to the back of the report, you have an article on 2 URI studies funded in part by the Rhode Island Sea Grant that are focused on Block Island, one on sand budgets and one on marshes. And obviously the Resilience Committee has a finger on the pulse of those two, which is great.
The email from Charlene, but Charlene has agreed to do that RI 250 thing in Providence on the 4th of July, which was really kind of her. And I think, hopefully she's excited about it too.
Happy to take questions on things that are here, things that are not.
Question about why is Troop 46 of Barrington not camping at the Boy Scout camp?
They traditionally, I can't say why, but they do traditionally camp on Mansion Beach.
Okay.
So, and we
Yeah,
grant their
they've
ask.
done that,
Yep.
yeah. They do a cleanup too, I believe, don't they?
They do.
And that's been going on. Boy, yeah, long, I remember it going back.
Let's talk legislative. DOT, Mike and I had what felt like a very positive meeting with the director and his team today about specifically the building. We know that the roads are following their process. It's slow, but we're there. They came ready to discuss what the next steps are. And we didn't need to do any convincing about the need, the status, or any of that. It came with acknowledgement, which was great. They're going to start work on design, and hopefully we'll do a site visit end of June, July. We felt it was important for them to come out here in order to see things in reality. There are obviously concerns about the budget and the amount of funding that they can put towards it, but we all agreed that would not stop the process. But it will be important to get through to a bid stage and then know what the shortfall is and how we're going to address it. So, you know, it's not going to be perfect, but we'll at least it feels like we're moving down a path, and then we'll hopefully be working together to close whatever gap might exist. So.
How do they feel about the part?
So we've identified that as not our highest priority. I really believe it's more important to get that building done than to slow, divert, or give anyone an excuse not to do it. To the extent that we have opportunity to encourage that space, you know, in what is really open space right now, to be left open in order for us to develop it in the future, we'll keep that angle, but we're not going to delay the project in order to fit it in.
It's a good approach. Yeah.
Right. If it comes down to go, or no go in terms of what the budget is and using trusses that have cross beams, we have to get the building done. So we're open-minded about it, but are prepared to just get it done.
So you met today, whatever it was, with Mike, and they're hoping to have some plans in June?
It's not likely that they'll have plans, but that visit will include their consulting engineers and designers. Yeah.
And were they talking about a time frame for a build?
We did not specifically talk dates, but there was a sense of urgency
From them?
From them. Yeah. Obviously, there were a lot of people involved in getting us to this point, and a lot of frustration and things that didn't happen in order for us to be here. Their internal funding calendar will drive parts of this. It shouldn't drive the start, but it may that hole at the end, again, may sort of define the finish. It will definitely have to bridge 2 fiscal years, which again, given the construction timeframe, is likely anyway. If we have to go out to a 3rd year, that will be interesting, but let's get started and figure out where we are.
And we sent a letter with an ultimatum.
Yeah.
almost, right? And where does that stand with them?
I didn't take it off the table yet.
Okay.
Like I said, this was a promising meeting, but we need to see a little bit more results before we let anybody off the hook. So,
Because this is a lot of money
Mhm.
to us. It's not a lot of money to the DOT when you look at their overall budget. It's not a lot when you look at what they just put up in Coventry, what they did over in Narragansett and the places. So I think at the end of the day, the money thing is good. We need to leave that part on the table that we have. And I'm glad to see that you haven't said, okay, withdrawing us all fine and good.
oh,
We're-
no.
Right. Thank you.
We've learned enough by now. But again, the director did open with an acknowledgement of the long-term relationship and how much the department values, with a pat on the back, the relationship and the work that we do, but more concretely appreciates that it's financially beneficial to the state for this relationship to work out. So they see that from a financial perspective as well. So.
Good.
So roads come out of the TIPS program, if you remember, and we just closed our engineering RFQs, which was our next step. At your next meeting, you'll award some of those contracts. That gets rolled into our MOA with DOT. And so I expect maybe in July, we'd be looking at a draft MOA with them on the first 2 to 3 years of programming, meaning that was $2 million a year for 10 years. We can probably only tap into about 4 to 6 upfront.
But we're talking about the state roads, correct?
The state roads, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're administering the roads program. That's a reimbursement basis.
Right.
We are trying not to administer the building. We would really prefer that, we think it can be more efficient, more expedient, and more cost-effective for them to do that.
Yeah.
So that will probably be a different path. They will probably execute.
But the resurfacing of the state roads themselves,
Yep.
we're going to do that
Yep.
on a reimbursement base?
Yep, just like we did with West Side sidewalks. Yep.
And you think that's more cost effective, or do you think it's more efficient?
I think that's the only way to get it done. They will not prioritize it and execute if it's in their wheelhouse to do.
So they're saying on their prioritization, it's lower on their list because of what they have. But if they do the reimbursement,
It allows us to execute much faster
Okay.
than not faster than we would like, but faster than they are willing to execute.
We're still bound to all the federal,
Yes.
as we both know. But-
Yep, and that's why that first step was going back out to bid for engineering again. That's a requirement of the federal funding. So.
Right. But a lot of their engineering is in-house though, isn't it?
Yes. Well, in-house consultant, yes.
Which when we do it, it's outside.
Yeah.
So therefore, that's an added cost. Well,
Again,
well,
they're usually mostly using consultants at
Are
this
they?
point.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Whether it's more cost effective or not, I can't say, but
Gotcha.
there's no path where they execute on the roads. That's not an option.
Well, they're getting a lot of heat right now because the bridge was subbed out. and, for consulting. And, so there may be some change in direction on some of those things.
Are we ready to move down the list? Next is non-owner occupied property tax. I guess it was the beginning of last week, had a very productive meeting with the league and got real buy-in from the other communities who aren't necessarily engaged in this conversation on the principles, which again, we all know, we've all talked about. It does look like there will be a bill introduced. I don't have a timeline yet, but it's been drafted that would ask for a suspension, meaning delay the implementation and the creation of a study commission. One of the areas that we've gotten real traction with is the idea that there isn't agreement on the impact, on who's impacted, on the administration, the implementation. What are the numbers that are really being talked about? Pretty big disconnects there. So I will let the council know when that is introduced, and we will likely want to have a presence and a strategy about attending those hearings.
Amy, is one of the challenges that they already have the budget with these funds accounted for as part of their current budget?
Yes, it's not in the general fund, so it's a little bit easier.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
But it is, there's still that question of if that funding stream disappears, where will the funds come from? In reality, it funds a fund that has a sunset, and so people are working on that angle as well. So,
but there's a group. There's a pretty good advocate group that will be the beneficiary of these funds. I'm sure there'll be a lot of opposition to find either not do it or make sure that there's some other funding to make up for what wouldn't come in, right? Because they've already counted, I think, from that end of it.
Yeah.
And then I think the other is, if that does go, I think to have some people, testify, I think would be good. And I think it has to be good testimony that, as to the principle, not just the,
yeah, and
you know what I'm saying?
by the time we're at a hearing level, we'll understand better which arguments have held water
Sure.
at the broader legislative level. They may not care about Little Block Island.
Are you finding, you said you're getting a little bit more buy-in from some of the other people. I mean, when it was kind of surprising how little we were getting. Do you think that's because they're starting to realize the impact within the different communities?
To an extent, but I think it's more being able to convey to some of those other communities just how far the overreach is into municipal budgeting, and that's a door that can't be closed, particularly in the context of the 4% cap and what this does to people's taxes and sort of the hypocrisy of that, really.
We're doing the homestead exemption, and I'm thinking about the state tax. That we had no. It's so much in the forefront of your mind when you're thinking about these things, and it's something that we're really no control. It's massive.
I didn't call it out, but in the manager's report, I did identify that we've had over 210 revaluation hearings, which far surpasses any other revaluation year. And I have to believe it's not just driven by the increase, because we've had significant increases in property values in the past. But there is an incentive now that didn't exist before to keep that property value low. Before, people would say, well, my value goes up and the mill rate goes down, and in general, the community is supported and I pay my part. Now there's an outside force that really incentivizes a lower valuation in a really monetary way. And I have to believe that's playing a role. So.
Yeah, there's an impact. There's an impact to that that isn't driven by
by what we do here.
Yeah.
And how long do people have to get a hearing with Vision?
Technically, they've closed.
Okay.
You can still ask, and I think they're they're accommodating as they can, but I do believe they've closed, but
I mean, I've had people express a lot of frustration, and some are taking the frustration towards vision. Understandably, when you see your property value go up that much or double, you want to, and a lot of people, when you really need to take the time and compare your house to the others, and did we all go up equally or whatever it might be from that end of it. But I think and because this was a statistical reeval, correct?
correct.
And usually when it's the fuller reeval, that's when it gets more detailed. And do you usually find more of a well, let's call it accurate adjustment on a full reeval as opposed to a statistical?
I actually wouldn't put it that way.
Yeah.
It will capture more uniquely changes that you've made to your
Right.
individual property. But I think the statistical provides a market view that actually is unique. In some ways, I think it's more accurate. Because it's not so tunnel visioned.
Sure.
I think there are pros and cons to both approaches.
And I think, that pill would be a lot, like you said, easier to swallow if everyone doubles and the mill rate drops in half, it's whatever the increase was, is fine. I think it's this other factor that's going in with it. And then when you have that 2.5, because you're not getting the 20%, I just, from that end of it. So, I mean, we know this going around and and it'll be interesting to see what the impact will be also from the realtor's point of view with it also. You can sell houses, but that doesn't mean it's the people that you want buying them.
Tick-borne illnesses, we had the House hearing on deer mitigation last night. Keith and Bill were both there. I don't know if either of you want to brief us.
Most of this is what happened afterward, which is so often the case here. Bill and I testified, and a fellow from whatever the this Hunters Association, I can't remember what it's called. And he was very much opposed to it. But in conversation later, Bill and I had this fellow, Dean Spears, Jeff Taylor, who came for Bill and myself. He had what I thought was a very interesting idea, very thought, which is we've been approaching this looking at the hunting statutes, and that's kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, that's kind of what was giving his members agita about this. And by the way, this is a powerful group, he suggested that we start looking at this as a specific health-related problem that is occurring on Block Island that is akin to what they call depredation, almost like the deer are eating the corn. Where there are these, where there are these special circumstances that are causing an unintended consequence of having, or a mass consequence of having deer population. So Jeff Taylor sent to me, and I assume Bill and you, what some other states have done in this regard. I was going to work, I think, with tomorrow on Friday, going to try to merge those things and send you guys just a bold thing about what we could do. But I found it, I thought it was, honestly, it was one of those conversations. I was saying this to Paul earlier when I was talking to him or Molly. It was I don't know why we didn't think of that as let's not even talk about it as a hunting matter. Let's talk about it. And I think verbally we talked about it as a public health matter, but we use maybe too controversial area to settings or something that is perhaps less controversial.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good wrap up of it. I'll say this, I was a little disappointed in the DEM on their opposition, saying that the town wasn't doing, all that they could do, and they referred back to the weekend hunting. And at the end of the day, it simply comes down to this. The DEM wants to manage herd solely by hunting. And then when it was mentioned about the damage permit, Barbara Burek used to get these all the time. She could show her tree had the antler rubbings, and Paul, you remember, Chief, you remember this, and the trees had the antler rubbing on them, so she was able to get a permit to go out and they could shoot some deer on her property going back in the day. And that's great, but that's like, to do that, you'd be picking so small for what our objective was. So that was one of the things that was thrown on at that part. And at the end of it, like I said, I think from, and he did make I think his name was Mike. He made a lot of sense from that end of it. And I had a lot, because it really came back to the roof profito, with the white buffalo and that approach. Okay. And I'm not saying white buffalo that, but that approach of how do we do something? It's not considered a hunt. It is, the word you had used a little while ago, Keith. And I think we might have a better approach than that, but don't look for the DEM to be hand in hand when it comes to hunting at all with it from that end of it. And I think that is, I gotta give Ruth Perfino credit. She made a lot of traction, you know what I mean? But I think that the approach that they took, and I don't mean white buffalo, I think that's the avenue we need to look at a little harder.
So we'll continue to work on that.
Yeah, I don't expect anything I wouldn't expect anything with that bill going, and I would not look to reintroduce a bill along that line, because I don't see a lot of traction there. So I think we need to. Would you agree, Keith?
No, Ian Spears said she has to post to get something.
Let me tell you, that bill though, the bill we could not have been more generous to the DEM, because what we said was, what that bill says when you read it is, we'd like to do this, this, and this, only if it's okay with you, with your permission. So I think our energy should be put more towards the other thing, because I think that's what's going to have success.
Give Ian Spears something to replace.
Sure.
With that. So yes,
Listen.
And we agree.
I think we needed to go up there, and I think they need to hear face to face, whether it's Keith and I and other people. And like I said, what Keith said, we have a problem, we need your help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think they need to hear that. So like I said, and if it's said enough times, it weaves its way into a reality. So.
There was another bill that, on tick mitigation, I wasn't previously aware of it, so I wanted to make sure you all were aware of it now. Obviously that hearing has already been held, but if it comes back up, we would want to make sure that the messaging is consistent with our overall strategy. So, that's an FYI. On the moped license retirement, we believe we've reported on those hearings already, and there is proposed language that I just want to make sure the council is comfortable with, that takes out, I don't have it now, takes out the phrasing around expiration without renewal or revocation. So by removing those words, we're making it very clear we're not trying to revoke anyone's license. We're not trying to catch someone's license who's administratively expired because they didn't sign a piece of paper. So I think everyone is comfortable with that, but I just wanted to.
Can you
make sure
send us a copy of that, Amy?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely, but it just takes that last section.
Or if you read it again, I'll be good with it. Taken out.
I'll read it as it stands first, and then I'll read it without.
That'd be great.
Upon voluntary surrender, expiration without renewal, revocation, or other retirement of a license for the rental of motorized bicycles, motor scooters, and/or motorized tricycles, the maximum number of licenses authorized under subsection C shall be permanently reduced by 1 for each license voluntarily surrendered, expired without renewal, revoked, or otherwise retired. So we take away expired without renewal, we take away revocation. So upon the voluntary surrender or other retirement of a license. Right.
Right.
Right. So it refers now to voluntary, each license voluntary surrendered or otherwise retired. So
Has the opposition, there was opposition to the bill last time. Have they looked at this? Are they?
I don't know that I don't know that we will ever get them to agree to it, but it specifically addresses the concerns that they've raised.
I know, but I mean, it also, it'd be nice to know if there's a opposition to it. You know, it's nice if they don't have opposition. So I guess you can leave that to the representative and Jeff, what the best approach is, but.
Wait. Are we gonna talk about things for future agendas? That's okay.
It's all my things.
You want to make this longer? No, I'm kidding. I am wondering whether we could discuss at some point expanding recreational uses such as dog parks, pickleball, bocce, whatever anybody else has. I would like to be sure that we discuss July 4th. And if we could go back to the tent ordinance at some point.
And then can we revisit Old Harbor?
Can you be more specific?
The parking situation down there, in
Oh.
particular,
Yeah, we
our
got a letter
tenant
the other day.
for our paying customers. Just a
Sure.
little clarity on the. parking.
We're already working on that, actually.
You are.
So, hopefully I can have either results that you've seen or an update at our next meeting. Yeah.
And our ongoing matter, which.
Sure.
There is a line, we will revisit that.
I would like to do that once our fifth member is seated so that so that they can have the benefit of being
Understood,
up to speed.
understood.
But yeah, it's high on our radar.
Do you think, so do we need to agenda Old Harbor parking, or do you think we can get it before the season? I would like I need a little clarity.
Peter, are you talking about parking for the fishermen?
I am,
Yeah, okay,
I am.
thank you.
We'll agenda something.
Okay.
Cool. A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
I think